Coming up on Arirang News. Amid worries over short-staffed emergency rooms during the upcoming Chuseok holiday, the government came up with a set of measures, including a temporary physician pay hike and extending financial support for hospitals to hire more medical staff. To stabilize prices of rice that are expected to fall due to overproduction, the government, the ruling party, and related industries agreed to set aside the surplus from this year's harvest. They set long-term goals to stabilize beef prices as well. At least 40 people died in an Israeli strike on Gaza's main southern city of Khan Yunis, which holds tens of thousands of displaced Palestinian refugees. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Starting tomorrow, the authorities plan to take extra care to ensure emergency medical services are available for the upcoming Chuseok holiday. President Yoon says more local hospitals and clinics will be open, while doctors will temporarily get higher pay. Our Kim Do-yeon starts our coverage.
Amid concerns over the long holiday straining the nation's already hit emergency medical system, President Yoon Suk-yeol on Tuesday said the next 2 weeks will be the Chuseok holiday emergency medical period. This came during a cabinet meeting to ease the public's concern over access to healthcare during the 5-day holiday.
추석 연휴 기간 국민 여러분께서는 정부의 안내에 따라 주시면 걱정 없이 의료 서비스를 받으실 수 있습니다.
First, he said there have been more local hospitals volunteering to open during this year's holidays than in past years. According to the Health Ministry, the number of hospitals expected to open during this period is twice as many than the last Seollal or Korean Lunar New Year, which was around 3,600. This is expected to ease the burden of emergency rooms across the nation, as President Yoon urged those with mild symptoms to find these hospitals or clinics to get checked up. For those looking for an open hospital, they can dial 129 or visit the portal called eGen or use the Naver or Kakao Map functions. He showed appreciation to these hospitals and those in the emergency rooms who will continue to work.
정부는 의료인들의 헌신에 조금이라도 보답하기 위해 추석 연휴 전후 한시적으로 진찰료, 조제료 등 건강보험 수가를 대폭 인상하기로 했습니다.
In fact, the government will increase the consultation fees for specialists at regional emergency medical centers who are particularly responsible for critically ill emergency patients to 3.5 times the usual rate. In addition, to reinforce the insufficient workforce, the government will prioritize the deployment of available personnel such as military doctors, public health doctors, and medical support nurses. According to the top office, the finance minister reiterated during the meeting that 3.7 billion Korean won, or around $2.7 million will be put in to make sure more medical staff could be deployed. As he wrapped up, the president didn't forget to thank those who would not be traveling to their hometowns due to their duties, such as soldiers, firefighters, police officers, and emergency medical workers. He called them the true heroes that uphold the society. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, this afternoon, the government unveiled its plan to inject over $5 billion to improve education at medical schools, in line with its plan to increase the number of new medical school students. Our Chuseok has the details.
The government has revealed its plans to provide support for medical schools following their increased enrollment quota. According to the announcements from the Education and Health Ministries on Tuesday, starting next year until 2030, more than $5 billion will be provided in financial support. Improving education conditions will mainly focus on areas to match the increased number of students. In particular, the plan is to make national university medical schools into regional hubs. Over 3 years starting next year, 1,000 additional medicine professors will be hired by national medical schools by utilizing retired professors in emeritus positions. Materials necessary for basic training, such as microscopes and dissection tables, will also be provided. Also, schools will receive financing to remodel facilities and increase classroom space due to the expanded quota. The law will be revised to prioritize cadaver allocation to medical schools due to fewer donations. By 2028, clinical education training centers will be established in all national university hospitals, allowing students and residents to receive systematic education. The proportion of local students admitted to 26 universities outside the capital region will gradually increase, reaching about 62% by 2026. Moreover, next year, the allocation of residents to non-capital regions will be increased to 50%, ensuring that residents from local medical schools can train and settle in their regions easily. However, since all of this is based on the early plan to increase enrollment by 2000, it may change depending on discussions within a joint consultative body proposed by the ruling party. Chuseok, Arirang News.
Also ahead of the Chuseok holiday, the authorities are trying to stabilize the price of domestically produced rice by controlling its supply. Some long-term goals were set for the modernization of beef production as well. Our Lee reports.
As we face one of the biggest holidays here in South Korea, perhaps a major concern for many is the price of groceries. To ensure that the nation's farmers and consumers can all enjoy the Thanksgiving celebrations free from money worries, the government, the ruling party, and the agriculture and livestock industries are set on stabilizing these prices, especially for two South Korean staples, rice and beef.
We are set on stabilizing rice prices by setting aside the surplus from this year's harvest. First, we will set aside 20,000 hectares of rice cultivation areas immediately to prevent overproduction.
Representative Kim explained this is to prevent more of an oversurplus from entering the market. In addition, the government and farmers will work together to enhance rice quality to increase consumer demand, which has decreased year by year recently. Meanwhile, more long-term goals are being set for the domestic beef production industry.
We will strengthen the domestic beef industry by improving the current high-cost, long-term production process, so there is no more recurring anxiety about its supply and demand.
The plan is to help farm owners build so-called smart cattle stations, equipped with technologies to help with production efficiency. Furthermore, the government will provide extended financial support and look for more fair distribution channels. Meanwhile, the government is working to increase the supply of other grocery items, including cabbages, apples, and pears, typically enjoyed in Korea's autumn months. Lee, Arirang News.
The Seoul Bankruptcy Court on Tuesday granted the e-commerce platforms TMON and WeMakePrice, currently in the midst of a payment delay crisis, permission to enter a rehabilitation process. The decision comes more than a month after both platforms filed for court-supervised rehabilitation. They must compile a list of creditors by October 10th and submit a rehabilitation plan by December 27th. The court will review the plan by the end of the year for final approval. But if the plan doesn't seem feasible, the companies may face bankruptcy. In other news, South Korea on Tuesday hosted a defense ministerial meeting with member states of the UN command. This is the second meeting of its kind after last year's inaugural session, which commemorated the 70th anniversary of the Korean War. Co-hosted by South Korea and Canada, this year's session in Seoul was attended by the representatives of 16 other UN command countries and the head of the command, Paul Lacamera. Describing UNC as one of three key axes protecting South Korea, South Korean defense minister said this meeting is a chance to send a strong warning message to North Korea and a message of solidarity to countries that share common values. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says his regime will increase its number of nuclear weapons exponentially, blaming what it calls the U.S.-led military bloc. Against this backdrop, South Korea, the U.S. and Japan today held defense talks. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
North Korea's Kim Jong-un emphasized his regime's commitment to strengthening its nuclear capabilities. He said the North was carrying through policies to exponentially increase its nuclear weapons as a crucial measure to safeguard national sovereignty and security interests, according to the state-run KCNA on Tuesday. At a ceremony marking the 76th anniversary of the founding of the DPRK on Monday, Kim stated that North Korea will continuously enhance its nuclear capacity to counter any threatening actions by nuclear-armed adversaries. He criticized what he described as the reckless expansion of the U.S.-led military bloc, calling it a significant threat. Meanwhile, South Korea, the U.S., and Japan held their 15th defense trilateral talks in Seoul on Tuesday. The three countries released a joint statement condemning Pyongyang's recent diversification of its nuclear delivery systems and tests and the launches of multiple ballistic missiles. The three sides reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening trilateral cooperation to contribute to peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula, in the Indo-Pacific region, and beyond. They also agreed to hold a second trilateral multi-domain military exercise known as Freedom Edge in the near future. The first Freedom Edge exercise took place in June. Regarding Kim's remarks, an official at the South Korean Ministry of Unification told reporters on Tuesday that Kim's message was notable and that he avoided directly referring to South Korea as part of the U.S. and its followers. The official said this is because the speech might have been intended more for a domestic audience. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
High-level delegations from around the world have declared that decisions regarding nuclear weapons should be controlled by humans, not AI. On Tuesday at the REAIM summit, a platform for global discussions on the responsible use of AI in military applications, participants adopted a blueprint for action that outlines guidelines for responsible AI governance. They emphasized the need to prevent AI technologies from being used by nations or terrorist groups that contribute to the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. They added that strong security measures are crucial to prevent the misuse of potentially dangerous AI-based military systems. South Korea, a co-host of the summit, plans to push for further discussions based on the declaration at the United Nations. The tourism ministers of South Korea and Japan met in Kobe on Tuesday to discuss boosting bilateral tourism. According to South Korea's Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, Minister Yoon and Japan's Minister of Land Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, Saito Tetsuo, highlighted the need for more exchanges between the young generations, such as increased overseas school trips. They also talked about developing and promoting tour programs for lesser-known travel destinations in each country. Both ministers will attend the South Korea-China-Japan Tourism Ministers meeting on Wednesday in Kobe. On the international front, Israel struck a humanitarian zone created to shelter displaced Palestinians in southern Gaza early on Tuesday local time, killing at least 40 people. Tae Yoon has more.
At least 40 people have been killed and 60 injured in an Israeli early morning strike on a humanitarian zone created to shelter displaced people in southern Gaza, according to local rescue officials, in what Israel said was an attack on Hamas terrorists in the area. Gaza Civil Defense spokesman Mahmoud Basal said Palestinians in the area were not warned of the strike in advance, adding that ambulance and civil defense crews have been mobilized to the site and there is talk of a large number of killed and wounded. At least 4 missiles hit Al-Mawasi, a coastal region in Khan Yunis, where hundreds of displaced Palestinians had fled to, many living in tents in an area with sparse infrastructure, according to Reuters. Local rescue officials from the Gaza Strip reported that about 20 to 40 tents were destroyed in the attack, leaving craters with a depth of at least 9 meters. Emergency official Basal said that teams had been struggling to search for victims who might have been buried. Israel admitted launching the airstrike in southern Gaza. The Israel Defense Forces said that it struck significant Hamas terrorists who were operating within a command and control center embedded inside the humanitarian area in Khan Yunis, Gaza. The IDF has blamed Hamas and other militant groups in the Gaza Strip for continuing to systematically abuse civilian and humanitarian infrastructure, including the designated humanitarian area, to carry out terrorist activity against the State of Israel and IDF troops. 차윤경, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S. presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will face off in their first televised debate on Tuesday local time, amid recent polls showing the two candidates racing neck and neck. Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
The televised debate between U.S. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump was the catalyst for the incumbent dropping out of the race. That led to Vice President Kamala Harris running as the new Democratic Party candidate. And another showdown is set to take place on Tuesday, as Harris and Trump will meet for their first televised debate. Hosted by ABC and moderated by David Muir and Lindsay Davis, the debate will last for 90 minutes. Taking place in Philadelphia, the two will square off on key issues like the economy, immigration, abortion rights, crime, and foreign policy. With the two candidates neck and neck in recent polls, the televised debate is expected to give a much-needed push to convince swing voters one way or the other. Trump is likely to blame high inflation on the Biden administration and its clean energy expansion policy. Harris is likely to counter by presenting her economic pledges to reduce the burden of inflation on the middle class, while slamming Trump for looking after the rich. The two will also lock horns on immigration issues and abortion rights. And following a recent school shooting, pundits expect gun control might also be brought up. And all eyes are on how Trump will respond, given the assassination attempt on the former president. As for the rules of the debate, the mics will be muted while each candidate takes their turn to speak, despite a request from the Harris camp to have the microphones open at all times. The debate will begin with questions from the moderators with no opening statements. Harris and Trump will, however, have a chance at the end for a 2-minute closing statement. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Apple has lost its appeal against the EU's €13 billion fine for unfair tax benefits. The EU's Court of Justice ruled on Tuesday that Apple must pay the fine that was imposed by the European Commission in 2016. The Commission had ordered Apple to pay €14.3 billion in back taxes and interest, saying the tech company's tax benefits in Ireland were unfair compared to other companies. On the same day, Google's parent Alphabet also lost its appeal over a fine of €2.4 billion for abusing its market power. The fine was imposed in June 2017 for favoring its own shopping service over those of competitors, which was deemed anti-competitive. Over in the U.S., wildfires in the southwest of the country are growing rapidly amid a heat wave that has pushed daytime temperatures up to around 38 degrees Celsius in the region. Californian fire authorities have said that more than 8 billion square meters have burned across the western U.S. since the fire started on September 5th. The Lime Fire, which started in San Bernardino, east of Los Angeles, is forcing around 5,000 homes to evacuate. About 1,000 firefighters have been deployed, but the fire is only 3% contained. California has declared a state of emergency in the area and is sending various resources to minimize the damage. In Vietnam, Typhoon Yagi struck the country over the weekend, claiming at least 49 lives and leaving many people missing. Yoon reports.
What is said to be the strongest to hit Vietnam in decades, Typhoon Yagi devastated the country over the weekend, sweeping away buses, sinking boats, blowing down thousands of trees, and tearing roofs off buildings.
In my entire life, I haven't seen a typhoon with this brutal winds. Very strong. It has knocked down many trees on the streets. I have to temporarily be under the shelter, under the bridge.
On Monday, a major bridge in northern Vietnam, the Phong Chau Bridge, collapsed, causing cars to fall into the river below. Over 10 people are still reported missing from the bridge collapse. Deaths from the typhoon have risen to at least 49, and over 20 people are still missing. This is according to the local government as of Monday. Deaths have continued to rise in the aftermath of the typhoon, including from a landslide triggered on Saturday.
I've lost everything. There's nothing left. When I look around, people have also lost all they had, just like me. Even though I'm sad, I can talk about it because it's not just me who is suffering. I can only try to recover from this.
The typhoon cut power to millions of households and companies and severely damaged infrastructure. The walls of a South Korean LG Electronics factory collapsed in Haiphong, northern Vietnam, causing significant damage but no injuries to employees. LG Electronics said that refrigerators and washing machines were floating in the floodwater. Although Vietnam's meteorological agency downgraded Yagi to a tropical depression on Sunday, it cautioned that there is still a high risk of additional flooding and landslides as the storm moves westwards. Typhoon Yagi, one of the most powerful storms to hit Asia this year, also caused significant destruction in China and the Philippines before reaching Vietnam. Yoon, Arirang News.
Turning our eyes to culture. In a world often dominated by sleek, modern architecture, a centuries-old Korean tradition is capturing global attention. In line with this, a unique educational program is helping to preserve and promote the ancient art of Hanok construction. Our Moon went there to take a look.
Hundreds of small, carved wooden blocks fill this room, all in various stages of completion. It may not look like much now, but they are the building blocks of Hanok, a style of traditional Korean architecture beginning to gain traction globally, thanks to its unique characteristics that set it apart from Western-style buildings in the modern day. Jeonbuk National University's Gochang campus offers a wide variety of Hanok education programs that range from a hobbyist course to a 4-year undergraduate degree, funded by the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport in an effort to conserve Hanok culture. Students come from a wide variety of backgrounds as a result, including this group of students who are learning how to build ondol, an underfloor heating system, and how to apply clay to walls. They're all professionally trained architects wanting to integrate Hanok elements into their work, and 2 months into the course, their perspectives on Hanok are changing.
I used to think of Hanok as just houses that people used to live in back in the day. But since I began this course, I realized it's more complex and worth studying in depth.
Another key aspect of Hanok architecture is that it can be built and then taken apart again like Lego blocks. This is possible because these buildings don't use nails but interlocking pieces to keep the structure sturdy, and students are able to build pavilions like this before disassembling them to donate to disadvantaged communities or public institutions to be reassembled on site.
As you can see behind me, students are busy learning techniques that are essential for Hanok building, especially woodwork.
Wood and soil are the primary materials that go into building Hanok, making traditional Korean architecture eco-friendly and sustainable. As current global architectural trends are centered around sustainability, Hanok is an attractive building model overseas. The university exports Hanok to many countries around the world, including the likes of Vietnam, the Philippines, Algeria, and the United States.
The most rewarding aspect of teaching the program here is when people overseas recognize the beauty of Hanok when we export Hanok to their countries. The future of Hanok seems bright, with more orders coming in and women also taking an interest in learning Hanok architecture.
With this global boom, the localization of Hanok to fit their new overseas environment will be the next step in preserving and promoting Hanok culture. Moon, Arirang News, Gochang.
It's supposed to be autumn, but it still feels like midsummer. Seoul's temperature of 35 degrees Celsius will lead to similar heat to today, and tropical nights are expected to continue. In particular, with temperatures above 35.1 degrees, it will break the record for the hottest September day ever. Please take good care of your health. There's rain forecasts all over the country tomorrow. Jeju Island will receive up to 120 millimeters, and the Seoul metropolitan area, Gangwon-do, and the Chungcheong-do provinces will receive up to 60, while other areas are expected to receive 5 to 40. Tomorrow morning will start off at least 24 degrees all over the country. Highs will move up to 35 in Seoul and Daejeon, Daegu, Gyeongju, and Busan, 32 degrees. The heat wave is expected to ease off with rain on Friday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?